wabarakatuh, and greetings to our lecturer Mr. Saiful Zizi bin Jalil. We are the student AM238 and we will be presenting on the theory of idealism in international relations. First of all, I will explain the definitions of idealism. What is the meaning of idealism? The theory of idealism is based on the belief that human nature is not inherently bad and that states can work together to achieve common goals. The word idealism originates from the word idea, which means a concept or notion of something considered good or perfect. Etymologically, it comes from the Latin word idea, referring to form or concept, and developed into English through the word idealism. Meanwhile, in the context of international relations, idealism is a theory that emphasizes the potential for cooperation among nations, highlighting the importance of international institutions, laws, and ethics in achieving global peace. Now, let's move to the when the idealism started. Idealism was tied to the interwar period. As we know, there is a huge destruction happened during World War I. Idealism emerged at the time as a means to stop the wars and improve peace by establishing organization by using international law norms and diplomacy. Basically, to be more precise, idealism at the time represented the early philosophical and religious texts proposing ideas of cooperation, peace, and justice among nations. This perspective believed that international relations can be improved, leading to a more peaceful and cooperative world order. Next, who introduced the concept of idealism? In general, idealism was introduced by Plato, which is the ancient Greek philosopher. He is also one of the emergences of idealism in philosophy. Plato, also known as father of idealism because he proposed that there is universal idea in the world beyond the world of perceived reality. For example, Plato represents the theory of forms under his famous work, The Republic, which is central to his idealist worldview. Plato believed that everything in the world is like imperfect copies of perplexed forms that exist in a higher realm. Meanwhile, idealism in international relations, famously known by Woodrow Wilson, which is the 28th President of United States. He is one of the prominent figures associated with the development of idealism in international relations. The development he advocates is the new approach to international relations based on principle whereby the world must be safe for democracy. Basically, Wilson's views were based on the future welfare of humankind. The example that shows the Wilson principle is at the close of World War I. Wilson proposed his idea for the League of Nations, the first international organization whose principal mission was to maintain world peace by promote cooperation and prevent conflict.
Factor of idealism. First, emphasis on universal perfection. Universal perfection refers to the idea that humanity as a whole should strive toward an ideal state of peace, justice, and cooperation. It is based on the belief that there is a perfect way the world should operate and humans can work toward this perfect state. Woodrow Wilson, the President of the United States during and after World War I, was a key proponent of idealism. He believed that idealism could help prevent future wars and reform the international system. Wilson is best known for presenting his 14-point to Congress, which outlined his vision for a post-war world based on peace and cooperation between nations. Wilson's idea of League of Nations was designed to institutionalize peaceful relations between countries. The League aimed to create a system where nations would be governed by international law to ensure world peace and prevent wars. Wilson believed that through such institution, countries should resolve conflict peacefully without resorting to war. One of the core ideas of idealism is that misunderstanding between countries can often lead to war. If countries emphasize universal perfection and work towards a common ideal, there would be fewer reasons to conflict. Next, exercise of power of reason. Idealism places great importance on the mind and reason. It believed that human thought, ideas, and consciousness shape reality. This means that instead of focusing on material or external factors, idealism sees the mind as central to human existence. According to idealism, when humans are provided with the right environment like education, moral development, and democracy, they can live in harmony and cooperate with each other. The idea is that a civilized society which nurtures the mind will naturally want peace and cooperation, as people's moral reasoning will guide them to work together for the common good. Idealism also suggests that education plays a vital role in fostering a peaceful society. As people become more educated, they understand the importance of democracy and foreign policy control. This helps empower public opinion globally encouraging nations to work together to solve problems instead of fighting war. Third, emphasis on the existence of natural harmony. Idealists believe that, at the core, all people share common interests. Even though there are differences between countries, culture, and societies, idealism argues that the fundamental goal of all human beings is to live in peace and mutual respect. Idealism suggests that international relations should be built around the idea of creating peace. The idea is that by focusing on our shared interest in peace and security, countries can work together to create harmonious relations and avoid conflicts. Idealism does not limit itself to just political or military relations between countries. It also supports the idea that countries can interact through cultural exchange. Cultural ties such as art, music, and education can help build understanding and cooperation between nations, thus contributing to peace. Despite difference in behavior, culture, value, and tradition, idealists believe that all humans are fundamentally the same. They argue that regardless of ethnic, social, cultural, or religious background, all people desire the same basic thing. This belief in universal equality is a central tenet of idealism, as it promotes the idea that all people should be treated equally without discrimination and with dignity. The famous philosopher Immanuel Kant played a significant role in idealist thought. He argued that all human beings are bound by the same moral principles, which are rooted in human rights. According to Kant, people should be treated as ends in themselves, meaning they should not be used merely as tools or means to an end. Kant's idea emphasized that respecting others and treating them with dignity is essential. This moral foundation influences idealism as it calls for peace and cooperation based on mutual respect and shared ethical principles.
Impact of idealism on thought and various fields. The first impact of idealism is that idealism changed the way people think about the world and influenced various fields such as politics, science, and many others. Idealism has influenced numerous areas. For example, in politics, it has impacted how we understand governance and society. In biology, it has provided guidance on understanding the relationship between the mind and the body. Literature and psychology have also been influenced by idealistic thinking, where they focus on the importance of human perception of the world and moral value in life. One of the main figures in idealism is Immanuel Kant. According to the Kant, transcendental idealism is a theory that states that our understanding of the world depends on how our mind processes what we perceive, and what we cannot fully understand the world outside of ourselves. This means that what we know about the world is limited to what we can perceive through our sense and intellect. Overall, idealism has become the foundation for how we view politics, society, and culture in the modern world. The ideas proposed by early thinkers like Kant have a direct impact on how we think and interact with the world today. The second impact of idealism is its role as an educational philosophy, where idealistic education emphasizes holistic development. Idealism argued that the purpose of educational is not just to acquire specific technical skills, but rather to develop critical thinkers and introduce large abstract concepts like morality, ethics, and philosophy of life that helps shape individuals as a whole. Idealism emphasized that the goal of education is to identify and cultivate each person's moral excellence and abilities so they can better serve society. This means that education is not just for survival but for building individuals who are ethically responsible and accountable to society. In idealistic education, the approach is to search for reality in the unknown, whereas realistic education focuses on using the sense to understand the known world. In other words, idealism focuses on seeking deeper value and truth, while realism is more concerned with the tangible facts and objects in the world. Education is no longer seen as just as means for human survival, but it also involves broader contexts related to religious, political, and national needs of particular society or country. The third impact of idealism is in its pursuit the world peace, particularly after World War II and the establishment of the United Nations. Idealism believed that the world we live in should be peaceful, with nations working together to achieve global peace. This was a clear goal after World War II and the formation of the United Nations, which aimed to prevent war and major conflicts. However, conflicts still exist. Despite this vision of world peace, the real world is quite different. Many regions around the world are still involved in armed conflict, genocide, civil wars, sectarian wars, and territorial dispute, which contradict the idealism of world peace that was hoped for. For example, China and Tibet present a major ongoing conflict. Idealism would argue that China should stop its political and economic ambition to rule the world and cease its influence in Tibet. Tibet should be free to protect its culture and language without any imposition from China. However, China continues to assert control over Tibet and suppress its identity through the oppression of Buddhist monks and nuns in Tibet. China continues to violate human rights, especially in Tibet, Hong Kong, and within its own border, despite calls from the global community to stop its action. This highlights that failure of idealism in achieving universal peace and justice in the real world.
There are two pros and cons of idealism. First pros is idealism. This idealism influenced or contributed to shaping politics of the period. The Wilson principles were the most important visible political document. This ideology, on the other hand, served the philosophical foundations of presidents Woodrow Wilson drive to place national self-determination at the center of the 1990 peace treaty. Wilson's aim was to use wealth of the United States for the benefit of all mankind because, according to him, government interests were linked to the state countries. At first, some historians criticized Wilson for being realist rather than idealist, since they believed that participation in the League of the Nation was political necessity and that peace will benefit United States. Wilson, on the other hand, opposed war, according to him, war have no meaning. As a result, North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO is one of the Wilson principal achievements today, and there are still countries are desire to join NATO. The second pros of idealism is idealism focus on the development of education. Idealists have long emphasized the significance of the mind of matters. According Platonic idealists, proper education should include an examinations of such areas, art and science, which might lead pupils to the more speculative and abstract topic of the mathematics and philosophy. For the idealists, the most important thing is to arrive to truth, and truth cannot be ever shifting. Meanwhile, there are two cons of idealism. The first con of idealism is the class conflicts has affecting the international relations. Idealism, in the context of international relations, is a perspective that emphasizes that countries shall act based on moral principle, international law, and international cooperation. Followers of the idealism believe that global institutions such as United Nations (UN) can play significant roles in creating peace and stability world, and that war can be avoided if countries prioritize cooperation, democracy, and social justice. In contrast, Marxism's international relation emphasizes that influence of economics and class structure in global politics. According to Marxists, view international conflicts is often not caused by ideological difference or moral principles, but by struggle between dominant economic class such as capitalists and the oppressed working class. In the context, international tensions often arise due to economic disparities between rich and the poor countries, as well as the struggle for the resource needed by the capitalist nation. This class conflict involves tension between the wealthy capitalists and the poor, the working class or the proletariats, and in effect, how countries interact in the global arena. In summary, idealists mistakenly thought that they could control international politics by working with the international institutions, international law, and demilitarization treaties, rather than by comprehending by the intricacies of the state politic. Realists discuss power and how it functions in reality and history. The second shortcoming of idealism is that idealism has no freedom. Idealism is international relations or public administration suggests that countries or governments shall act based on the perfect moral and ethical principles. Idealism believes that the perfect solution can be achieved through the cooperation, international law, and morality. But due to the complex reality of the world, this often does not happen. The limitations of human activity and the constraints in the international relations make it difficult for idealism to fully implement. The failure of the several social and economic system based on idealism is detailed in the Great Society, the New Deal, and their inventions, which refer to the effort for the reform and change in the social economic politics. Although this was a major initiative, aim for improving social economic welfare, we argue that all of these efforts have failed some aspect. Example of the failure communism. In the collapse of communism in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe become a significant setback. For idealism, this is country adopted communist systems, which is essentially an ideology aimed creating classless society based on collective ownership. However, this system failed disastrously in many countries, leading to severe social economic hardship. Although the Soviet Union attempted to implement communist goal and the eliminating social inequality and creating a just society, the system failed disastrously. This resulted in severe social and economic difficulties, including the extreme poverty, shortage and essential goods and political instability. In summary, the failure in the implementation of idealisms and communisms in several countries show that grand theories about social and economic justice sometimes cannot be effectively applied in reality, while the intentions was to create more just a society. The results were emphasized with the worsening poverty and increasing social instability. This serves as important lessons in understanding the limitations of the idealisms when faced with the complex political and economic realities.
Now, I will summarize and conclude our video presentation, Idealism Theory. It can be summarized as spiritual knowledge, ideas and emotions that has the potential to benefit nation and the global community. It was because idealists advocate for global peace and containing war has an unethical actions that undermines the pursuit of peace. Furthermore, the advancement of education can be enhanced when idealist theories are implemented in the moral excellence of the individual from a quality educational system. Idealism theory also has created big achievements until today, such as the formation of the United Nations and the Universal Declarations of Human Rights, which promote human rights, justice and peace within the framework of international relations. Finally, we would like to express our individual viewpoint regarding to the idealism theory. We believe idealism theory is still relevant until today, despite the fact realism has prevailed in the international politics. It was because idealism is still applicable to other fields such as education, society, and culture. This was due to the fact that idealism formulated the framework by which the human mind perceived and engaged with the world.